What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about the market now. So as far as SPY is going, we had this falling wedge that was developing for quite some time. We're trying to break out of this, but I do think that because we're gapping up a bit, that we might be coming down just a little bit, trying to get a back test. But as long as we make a higher low compared to the low from yesterday at 589, and as long as we don't lose that low, there's a good chance this is just a temporary dip, some consolidation before this thing tries to bounce again. So let's break down some factors affecting this, and I'll talk about the charts. Just know that today is Wednesday, February 26th. There's nothing too crazy coming out for the markets. We do have Barkin giving a speech soon, but besides that, like I said, there's nothing too insane. We have new home sales at 10 a.m., and then we have some crude data, but most of it's just quite minor. Now, for other factors, just know that for earnings, we're about to see Nvidia, Snow, AI, and Salesforce announce their earnings after market close today. So after the market closes, we have a very, very big catalyst. It's going to be Nvidia. Nvidia is set for very, very big things, according to many analysts. Many of them are saying that we should be expecting it to pop, and there's a lot of optimism associated with its earnings right now. Nvidia did run to the upside 4 out of 4 of the last earnings that came out, so that is a good sign, and we'll have to see how they end up doing just to be safe. I also want to mention that the market is extremely fearful. There's so much fear right now. People are expecting, this downturn. People are very, very scared. And typically when that happens, that's the time to turn bullish. Momentum is at extreme fear right now. We're very close to our 125 daily moving average on the S&P 500. And then the put to call option ratio is at 0.73. So it's been climbing. It went from 0.6 to 0.73. So we start to see a 10% increase in put buying. The puts are getting bought up a lot more. People were expecting the market to tumble, so we'll see if that ends up happening. The VIX is also quite neutral, so we'll see how that goes. Now, last thing about the markets, I just want to say that we've been dumping quite a bit, but now the market looks like it wants to see a temporary rebound. For now, there is some hope with that. Nvidia is going to give us their earnings. Don't forget about their overall Blackwell market, which is going to be relatively big for them. And then we need to see how they're going to be offsetting this news. Right now, consumer confidence is very weak. It took its largest monthly hit since 2021. So how is Nvidia going to offset this? How are they going to keep investors optimistic? One thing I'll tell you is that Jensen Huang is very good at doing that. So hopefully the team do figure out a way to do that, and that could help the share price. Now, as far as the market goes with all of this, we're going to actually start off with Nvidia, then I'll talk about the others. Nvidia has this gap down here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip just a little bit after open and we see some consolidation, but I don't expect us to dip much. Keep in mind, the setup approaching earnings is bullish. We have a left shoulder, we have a head, then we have a right shoulder. So far, so good. Now, before we get earnings, I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of dip a little bit, consolidate just a bit, and then once earnings come out, it either launches the share price up back above these EMAs. So if we break like all these EMAs around 133, I think we easily go to the 140s and eventually the 150s. If we fail, if we end up losing 126, we're looking for a dump all the way down towards below 120 for a much larger rug pull. Because we already dipped so much the last couple of days, and because of this inverse head and shoulders like setup, and because of the fact that we tend to be creating the majority of the times after earnings, I think the odds do favor the upside move. I think the odds do favor this trying to bounce. I'm a little bit more bullish than bearish, but we'll see. Anything could happen, so always manage risks and do not go all in. I'm making that very, very clear. Be careful with the way that you play earnings if you do want to play it. And also don't forget there's going to be a big IV crush, so implied volatility is going to dump. So even if you get the direction right, you need a really, really big move to make profits on those options if you play them. If we don't get a massive move, in the beginning, if it takes some time for the move to start pushing, that could still hurt you. So that's the reason why I'm warning you to be careful playing options on Nvidia. Be careful, even if you do get the direction right, they can be very tricky, especially after those earnings. For SPY, okay, approaching Nvidia's earnings, we had a falling wedge. We gapped up a little bit, but I do think that we might be coming down here just a tiny bit. As long as we don't lose 589, there's a good chance that we dip and consolidate, and then eventually after Nvidia's earnings we could be looking for a nice rebound above the 600s if things go well for Nvidia. If not, if Nvidia does poorly and we end up losing 589, then we're looking for that gap filled all the way down to 584, right? So it could go either way. I am favoring an upside move a little bit more if we could hold this low here, as long as 589 does not break. Might dip a bit and consolidate for some time before it tries this rebound. I find this to be the most likely possibility, especially sentiment is very weak, but we'll see just to be safe. For the QQQ, same thing. Now, with the QQQ, we could be dipping a little bit. We have a gap that's coming from the pre-market, a small one. We might do something like this, consolidate a bit. If Nvidia does poorly, you want to see us lose this low at 50, I think 509. Then we could be dumping to like 506 or below. If Nvidia does well, we're looking for a rebound back above 520 to push for 525 plus or higher. I am leaning a little bit more in favor of this with the falling wedge. As long as we don't lose the low of the day from yesterday, we are going to favor that. We'll see how Nvidia does, but that's what I'm essentially eyeing. For the Russell 2000, we're on a bit of a downtrend here, but just know that we did dip quite a bit. We could get a retest of this trend line, and we'll see if we get a bounce from here and continue to push the 220 plus area. If we lose 214, I will become a lot more concerned for us to dip closer to like 212 or below. Might be a dip and a bounce that's coming, so watch that very closely. Notice ES, it actually bounced quite a bit, but it's at some tough resistance around 6,000, so I don't expect this to just break out. Might see a little bit of consolidation, maybe like a small dip like this before it tries to make a much larger move like that. But make sure you watch your levels. We also happen to have that falling wedge, which is looking very, very promising in my opinion. The same thing is also developing on like NQ and many of these other charts. So for now, we're looking quite good. The wedges remain. The 4-hour PPO on NQ is looking a little bit more promising. So I think that's actually a relatively good sign. So for now, the market's looking optimistic. The market looks like it has potential going into Nvidia's earnings. And I hope that that is a good sign for us. So if Nvidia does well, it's going to have a much more profound effect on this. As long as we don't lose 21,000, as long as we're above this, we could try some kind of rebound. If not, we could be dumping a lot more. Bitcoin, relatively weak right now. We could be looking for an 85,000 retest. It's going to dip more, so it's not really ready to base yet. Tesla, let me call out Tesla because when you zoom out, you will notice that we have this lower trend line. We touched this, bounced, touched it, bounced, and now we're at it right now. So it's possible that we get a temporary bounce on Tesla if we get a good report from Nvidia, because that's what technicals have showed us, at least temporarily, based off this trend line right over here. So that's actually looking quite promising if that ends up panning out. So for now, I think there's a good chance that we do try to do that. But before that happens, we might see a little bit more downside for Tesla, maybe like a dip to 300, consolidation in this range near the trend line. And then we'll see if Nvidia launches this back up towards 310. If we break that, I think 320 is coming. Previous support becoming resistance up here. And then if we lose 296, I'm looking for like the 280 standpoint. If we lose 296, I'll be a lot more concerned. I think we dip and consolidate for some time, then we're going to react to Nvidia's earnings. So we'll see. The news is negative, so we'll see if 296 holds or not. Apple's bullish, inverse head and shoulders like setup. We could dip and then bounce as long as we don't end up losing 245. It might just be a temporary dip before some buyers return and push us closer to 250. Coin could be dipping to about 210 before we see some buyers defend us. That's very possible as well. Amazon, if we can break past 215, we're looking for an attempt for 217 and 220. As long as we don't lose 210, it might be like a dip and a bounce. I do think we dip a little bit to fill this gap, so we might be making like a higher low here before it tries to bounce. Meta, same thing. Could be retesting like this very, very key EMA over here around this like 657 area before it tries to bounce again. It might consolidate for some time, but we'll see if buyers defend later on. Microsoft is going to likely consolidate, respect this wedge before it bounces, and the same thing with Google. It's a little bit lackluster right now, so I don't really expect much from these guys until we see another reaction. With that being said, I thank you for listening. Have a good one, guys. Let me upload this video as fast as possible. I'll be back with another upload in a couple of hours. Until then, take care and peace out.